Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much, Heather and Alyssa, for setting this up, working things, and Salt for having me in general. Self-compassion is one of my favorite topics to talk about through positive change. I have done a couple groups on it, I did a couple different workshops and talks. So I love self-compassion, and I think it's necessary for absolutely everyone. Next slide, please. Okay. So yes, my name is Katie Matea. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I have some background, graduated with my bachelor's from UCSD, master's from Point Loma Nazarene University, and then coming up on 8 years in the mental health field, 5 years practicing therapy. I specialize in children ages 13 and up, so young adults, older adults, teens, queer and trans individuals, and then I also see some couples. I have some training in internal family systems therapy or IFS therapy, and EMDR therapy. That's eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. And then, yes, I am currently working for Positive Change. We have 4 locations, including one here in La Mesa. We do have about 50 clinicians. We're a strengths-based group practice, but they see, and we see folks with a wide range of mental health struggles, all ages, all backgrounds, telehealth and in person. I'll have more info about Positive Change at the end if you have any questions. There's also some cards, some business cards, some stickers. Take all the stickers you'd like, and some mental health focused stickers back there too, because I don't know about y'all, but I'm a fan of just stickers and free stuff. So, all right, next slide, please. Okay, so as Heather did mention, this workshop is not a substitute for therapy. So please note that while we may be touching on some things, I may be prompting you to think about self-compassion, think about maybe where your internal narrative comes from, just think about ways to better care for yourself. This is not psychotherapy. So psychotherapy is a deeply relational and emotional process that takes a deep look inward, uses a therapeutic space and relationship that's formed over multiple sessions to heal. So again, this is not psychotherapy, but if you have questions on how to gain that as a resource, please let me know. And I'll be sharing some of Positive Change's info at the end as well. Participation is encouraged but not required. So at the end of this, there will be some either cognitive or physical somatic practices that I invite you to try out just as a form of self-compassion, but you're absolutely not mandated to participate. It is encouraged. At the bare minimum, at the beginning of every practice, I do say, feel free to close your eyes and take a deep breath. So if you don't even participate in the rest of it, bare minimum, you can just close your eyes and breathe. And then this workshop will focus on self-compassion from a holistic lens. So what that means is taking from many different aspects of your life and focusing on self-compassion. So that means from a spiritual lens, from a physical lens, from a cognitive lens, from an emotional lens, from a social lens. Self-compassion isn't done in one sitting. It's not done in just one aspect of your life. It's very well-rounded. So I'll be talking from a holistic lens. And then finally, change does not happen overnight. So if you're someone that has struggled with self-compassion, this workshop and this workshop alone is not going to solve that struggle. Self-compassion takes time, patience, and overall grace for yourself. It's like learning a new language. So please have patience with yourself and know that this is only the beginning. Next slide. And a little bit more on the holistic lens. So holistic meaning characterized by the belief that parts of something are interconnected and can be explained only by reference to the whole. So self-compassion happens, sure, on a mental level. How do I speak to myself? How do I think? What do I think? But also taking care of yourself on a physical level, an emotional level, social level. Community is so important, especially right now. Cultural level, professional level, spiritual level. So again, self-compassion is interconnected, and the spiritual section, so here at the bottom, will be covered by Alyssa at the end of this. So, oh, no? Okay, I was like, right? So, you're getting the cognitive lens here, you're getting the mental health lens, and you're getting the connection to spirituality as well. All right, next slide, please. So the purpose and intention, it's always good to set some intentions of what do we want to gain out of this. I hope to define self-compassion. So bare minimum, you will know by the end of this, what is self-compassion? To discuss the benefits of self-compassion. So I don't know about y'all, but my mind always goes to the research, the facts, the data, and data does show that self-compassion is beneficial for you, both personally, individually, and your relationship. So I will be sharing some of that research in case you're still a little skeptical of, should I be nice to myself? What does that really do? Learning how unhealthy relationships with the self form. So again, because this isn't therapy, we won't go into that too much, but we will kind of identify a little bit about where that comes from and assess how you do currently practice or maybe struggle to practice self-compassion. Learning and implementing new ways to practice self-compassion. So just generally, we'll talk about what are some ways you can be kinder to yourself, but we'll also go over some specific ways of how to assess and practice, maybe shift how you talk to yourself. And then finally, finding community with others who struggle to hold compassion for themselves. You are not alone. So I myself still struggle with that sometimes. Again, this is a journey, not a destination. And, Heather already mentioned it, and I'm sure every one of us at some point in time has struggled to practice self-compassion. So we will be in like-minded community. But just know, just to start, just by even being here, you are practicing self-compassion. So feel free to already give yourself a pat on the back. All right. So to start, defining what is self-compassion, I've probably name dropped that 100 times already. So you're probably like, what is it? I hope by the end of this, you get a richer, deeper understanding of self-compassion and how it's possible to practice it because ultimately you deserve it. There's a lot of misconceptions about self-compassion. A lot of times we think, oh, it's selfish or it doesn't allow us to grow because we're being too easy with ourselves. Those are some myths that I'd hope to debunk by the end of this and accurately define what self-compassion is. Next slide. So to start, what self-compassion is not. Self-compassion, self-esteem, two different things, but they are related. Why I tend to have these talks about self-compassion over self-esteem. So self-esteem is confidence in one's own worth or abilities. It's kind of this self-respect. And that's good too, don't get me wrong. Self-esteem is fantastic, but while those things are great, we're not always going to have 100% confidence all the time. We're going to have moments that we mess up. We're going to have moments where we don't feel at our best. I prefer self-compassion because even in those moments, you could still hold compassion and empathy for yourself while you're struggling. So we'll go over this more later, but that means in moments that we don't have confidence, we'll need that compassion. And we can always have the self-compassion even when we struggle with self-esteem. Another myth is that self-compassion is complacent. So, when we have self-compassion, we just excuse our bad behaviors or we excuse our mistakes. There's no room to grow. That is a myth because when we have self-compassion, we are not being complacent. In fact, it's the opposite. It's saying, I understand and maybe accept my flaws or my mistakes or my wrongdoing, and yet I still love myself in spite of that, and I want to do better. So there's still room to grow with self-compassion. A one-time solution. Self-compassion, again, is not just this workshop. It is a daily or regular practice of taking care of yourself. It's a progressive practice, a journey, not just the destination. And finally, probably the biggest misconception about self-compassion is that it is selfish. I can't take care of myself because I have to take care of other people. I can't give myself grace because I have to give grace to other people. I can't take this time to eat breakfast because my kids need breakfast. While, it is great to care for the people around you, self-compassion is not selfish. It's creating more grace and compassion for yourself and takes care of yourself so that you have something to fill other people's cups with. So, just like you can't pour from an empty cup, you need to have some compassion for yourself and have something to pour from. Next slide, please. So this is what self-compassion is. Self-compassion is gentle, warm, and kind. It's understanding, holding space for, and accepting who you are. So maybe shifting that more critical or harsh tone to one that is more gentle and warm and gracious for yourself. Self-compassion is proactive, so understanding that you are a work in progress with strengths and imperfections along the way, and that's okay. Self-compassion is mindful and balanced, so it takes intention, awareness, and a non-judgmental observation of yourself. We'll go over some of the specific practices on how to do that in a little bit, but it's just this mindful, balanced, fair way to address yourself. And then, that last note, it is fair. So treating yourself like you would a loved one in a tough situation with fairness, accountability, but also respect, justice, and compassion. And then these are some definitions, again, if you're kind of still unsure about what compassion is. So these are some leading researchers and writers and presenters on the topic. Compassion is aimed at alleviating suffering. It's the impulse to help, an active feeling of concern, the palpable instinct to care for those who are struggling, including yourself. Compassion is not about the easy choice, the one that feels best. It's about doing what is best. And that could go both ways in terms of like loving and accepting yourself, because that's going to help, but also trying to improve yourself in the future. Self-compassion is the opposite of self-criticism and toxic perfectionism. That was on a book about burnout and perfectionism. So it is actually the opposite of those things, even though often we think those things are going to help us be better or help us be better in our relationships. But that is not the case, and the research just doesn't support that at this point. And finally, self-compassion means showing kindness to yourself. It means accepting yourself for who you are, imperfections, and all. Self-compassion does not mean giving up on growth and self-improvement. Instead, it's about understanding that you are a work in progress with strengths and weaknesses, and that's absolutely okay. And here is the research. Here is the support. So Kristin Neff, she again is a leading researcher and author. She's fantastic. If you do want to explore more after this, Kristin Neff is one of the best people to explore. And she did a meta-analysis and research review of the research on self-compassion. So these are the benefits. Feeling happy, optimistic, satisfied with their lives, having a stable and unconditional sense of self-worth. Self-compassionate people are more likely to be strong and resilient when faced with hardship. So I'm not going to read through all of these, but as you can see, again, the research only supports that self-compassion is one of the best ways to go about positive change to take care of yourself. Note down here too how self-compassionate people are more likely to feel authentic and connected and experience intimacy in relationship with others. So again, when you tend to think, oh, self-compassion, that's selfish. I can't take care of myself. The research supports that by being kind to yourself, you are being compassionate with others and only improving your relationships. So just keep working on undoing that learning of self-compassion is selfish. All right, and just checking in, that's a lot of information all at once, but any questions or comments so far? Feel free to spew it out, raise your hand. Nope. All right, then we'll keep chugging along. Diving a bit deeper into self-compassion, so there are 3 key elements of practicing self-compassion. Keep in mind the holistic lens, so when thinking of these different aspects, think of ways emotionally, socially, culturally, professionally, spiritually, that you can start implementing some of these key components into your daily routine or into your self-compassionate journey. So the first being kindness. So this may look like shifting a critical or harsh perspective to a softer, kinder one. So this is warm, this is understanding, supportive, helpful, encouraging. It's a mindset shift from maybe a more critical, harsh one to a kinder one. You may already be implementing this a lot with other people. So it's taking that soft, warm, gentle approach to those around you or your community around you and just turning that inward. Second aspect being common humanity. So often folks struggle with self-compassion and they struggle to give kindness and compassion to themselves when they can give it to others. They think, yeah, they deserve it, but not me. Or they deserve to be taken care of. They deserve gifts. They deserve the world, but I don't. And to that, I would say, why not? You're human just like that person is human. You deserve kindness just like that person deserves kindness. So we'll learn about some ways to challenge those thoughts, but the idea of common humanity, you are not alone. You're all humans that suffer, and we're all humans that deserve compassion. And finally, the mindfulness. So that's the balanced, mindful perspective. That's kind of a mindset shift as well, to being more present and aware of how do I speak to myself? How do I treat others? What thoughts are coming up? And it's shifting to a more self-compassionate approach. It takes a bit of mindfulness awareness of how you think, feel, act, and any detachment from intrusive negative thoughts, because those can come up sometimes. All right, and exploring your relationship with yourself. So again, this is not a substitute for therapy, and I'm not trying to have you deep dive into your major life traumas, capital T traumas, little t traumas, but simply just assess where you're at with your self-compassion and where it might come from. Think to yourself, so as you're exploring where your self-compassion resonates already, ask yourself, what does my inner narrative sound like? What do those thoughts sound like? How do I speak to myself? How do I treat myself? And where did I learn these beliefs? So first practice of the day, we're going to start with a little practice to familiarize yourself with that inner narrative. This is that mindfulness key element of self-compassion at play. So again, you don't have to participate in this. I just invite you to. So starting with grounding, so getting in a comfortable position. I usually recommend feet flat on the floor. Ground yourself, whatever comfortable looks like right now. I invite you to close your eyes, but if that's uncomfortable, feel free to just lower them or keep them open, no worries. And then take 3 really deep, full breaths in through your nose and exhale through your mouth. Go ahead and do 3 of those. And then simply recall the last time you struggled to hold compassion for yourself. So whether that was a thought or a situation, an action, just take that time to think back to that. And simply observe. Listen, feel, observe how you related to yourself in that situation or during that time. So know any thoughts that came up, emotions, or physical sensations. And once you've taken inventory of that time, go ahead and take another deep, full breath, open your eyes, and come back to the room. And so just hold in mind what that was like. And next slide, please. And then you're going to ask yourself some questions about that experience. So what did that inner narrative sound like? What tone was I using as I was speaking to myself in that situation? Or what words am I saying? Are some of the things I was saying or believing from me, or is that a belief that someone else bestowed upon me or society bestowed upon me? Am I being fair with myself? Is this what I'm saying about myself rooted in facts or evidence, or is it maybe an interpretation or some biased view of what that sounds like? And how could I implement more compassion? How could I have implemented more compassion into that situation? So am I placing undue judgment on myself? How can I accept myself more or understand where I was coming from in that situation? And overall, how can I hold compassion for myself? And again, going back to where these beliefs or where this difficulty to hold self-compassion may come from. So it helps to examine where that comes from in order to shift and do better moving forward. So, poor self-compassion or lower self-compassion can come from socialization and systems that tell us we need to have lower self-compassion. That has to do with systems that deal with age, gender, sexuality, nationality, race, religion, ethnicity, immigration status, social class. A lot of times these systems can work against us and not promote self-compassion. Stress response. So when we detect a threat to our safety, perceived or real, it can often manifest as self-judgment. So this is almost a stress response, even sometimes to situations. We are biologically wired to make sense of what happens to us. And sometimes the mechanism that happens is just, this is my fault. I need to make sense of this. It must be a me problem. Observed behaviors, again, difficulty with self-compassion can come from witnessing primary attachment figures, parents, folks who have raised you either directly or indirectly, kind of act in a way that is less compassionate to themselves maybe, or less compassionate to you. And finally, a reaction to upbringing. So it can be a result of emotionally immature parenting. And a lot of people, when they hear that, they're like, hey, you call my parent immature? And it's like, no, we're just saying that maybe emotionally they didn't know how to meet their kids' needs, or maybe didn't know how to meet their own. There's also just a genetic component to self-compassion that's in some of the research and data that Kristen Neff, who I mentioned earlier, did, that there is a slight genetic component and genetic predisposition to struggling with self-compassion. All right, again, that's a lot of information and a very brief dive into that, but are there any questions or comments about the origins of self-compassion, what you noticed for yourself in checking in with your self-compassion? Okay. Building self-compassion. So this whole time you're like, wow, this is probably so much information, or this makes a lot of sense, or maybe it doesn't. And great, what do I do about that now that I've noticed that I struggle with talking to myself in a kind way, with practicing self-compassion? And please note, this is just going to be a crash course. So this is going to be more of those practices. Again, please do not feel pressured to participate or remember every single practice. But if I can recommend one thing, it's thinking, which one of these 4 practices really resonates with me the most. And then again, we'll be looking at this from a holistic lens. So if the somatic practice works best for you, maybe not thinking about it too hard, but feeling it, please stick with that. Therapy is not a one-size-fits-all. Mental wellness is not a one-size-fits-all. Definitely self-compassion is not a one-size-fits-all. So I hope you just glean what you need to from these practices. So to start, more generally speaking, just thinking how to implement more of these 3 elements of self-compassion into your regular practice or routine. So think of ways you could be kinder to yourself. Think of ways to remember your common humanity, that you also deserve self-compassion. Think of a way to be more mindful and observant and non-judgmental towards yourself or your thoughts. This is a more general way. But following is a more specific way. So this is a practice called Socratic questioning. This comes from cognitive behavioral therapy, but anyone can practice it as long as you have access to these questions. So this is a way to challenge some less compassionate thoughts about yourself. So these are some questions to ask yourself when maybe you have a thought that feels very intense, or you have a thought that might not be very fair to yourself. These are some questions to ask and challenge yourself. So some questions to ask: what is the evidence for this thought, and what is the evidence against it? Because maybe it is an accurate thought, often not if it's a little harsher or a little more mean, less compassionate, but let's just, to challenge it. What is the evidence for this thought? What is the evidence against it? Could I be misinterpreting the evidence? Am I making assumptions? So as I'm reading this too, if you have a thought that's maybe a little more harsh towards yourself or a little less fair, think the answer to these questions towards that thought as well. Am I looking at all the evidence or just what supports my thought? Could my thought be an exaggeration of what's true? Am I basing this thought on facts or feelings? Am I having this thought out of habit, or do the facts support it? Did someone pass this thought or belief to me? If so, are they a reliable source? So this practice is for more logical-minded folks that rely on analytical or practical thinking. It's a great way to challenge a less compassionate thought towards yourself. And this isn't meant to be a critical analysis. This isn't meant to say, oh man, my thought actually isn't accurate and it's not based on evidence, I suck. That's actually the opposite of the purpose of this practice. It's just being curious. So approach this thought with curiosity. Where is that thought coming from? Actually, now that I'm looking at it, it's not so accurate. I might shift to a different thought. So again, try not to have this be a critical analysis, but a curious and compassionate one. Question? Yeah.
How do you determine whether or not, like, I can see yourself going crazy. You're like, okay, is this a me thing? Is this an external thing? Is this a me thing? Is this an external thing?
Yeah.
How do you get out of that loop?
That is such a great question. How to get out of the loop of analyzing and coming to the correct answer for this.
How do you discern?
Yeah. So absolutely. So the idea of, is this fact or feeling evidence or not evidence? Simply if it cannot be challenged. So for instance, well, maybe everything can be challenged if you think about it, but hey, I am at the front of this room. I'm at the front of this classroom. Is that something that without a doubt cannot be true? If this person said maybe the thought is, I am not funny, but everyone in your life is saying you are funny, and you won an award for comedy, and you make everyone in every room you walk into laugh. The evidence might be leaning more towards you're funny, and that one person who had the comment that you're not funny, maybe the evidence is more stacking up for the fact that you are funny, and the evidence against it isn't really stacking up. So without a doubt, if there are facts that exist that support that thought, then sure, it might be a little true, but if all evidence is stacking up against it, it might not. Another thing too, is this based on fact or feeling? Feelings are temporary physical sensations, emotions that come and go, whereas the facts stay the same over time. So for instance, I feel like I'm not a good friend, but tomorrow I feel like a good friend. If that can shift, maybe then the facts of everyone says I'm their friend, or they keep inviting me to things, or I've never let a friend down, maybe that evidence is more concrete than the temporary feeling of the thing. Another one too, am I having this thought out of habit, or do the facts support it? So think of how you generally tend to think. If you generally tend to think the worst about yourself, it might be fair to assess, oh, wait, is this just like a habit of, a way I tend to think, or do the facts support it? A lot of times too, so this brings a great point. This is more for the analytical thinkers that are okay challenging that. For some of us, and me included, sometimes this is too many thoughts. I don't want to, I'm already overwhelmed with thoughts about myself or about the world. I don't want to add more to it. So this next practice might be more for you. This is a practice called speaking to a loved one, asking yourself, how would I speak to a loved one? This is a lot less analytical. And this also practices the common humanity aspect of self-compassion. So how would I speak to a loved one? Think of a situation in which you are struggling to hold compassion for yourself, or that you've ever struggled to hold compassion for yourself. And then choose a loved one that you cherish, care for, really hold that kindness and warmth to. And just ask yourself, what would I tell them if they were in this exact situation in my shoes? This is a funny little secondary party workaround. So if you struggle to just inherently say, okay, it's okay to be kind to myself, think, oh, it's okay to be kind to someone else. So I'm just going to implement that to myself. So if you're one that struggles with just that inherent being kind to yourself, this is a good workaround. But then also note for yourself, what language am I using to support this person? So let's say, I make a mistake and I think I am bad. But if my partner or my loved ones made a mistake, would I think they are bad? No. How might I speak to them? What tone might I use? Would I have understanding for their situation or how they acted in this situation? Am I showing them love? What advice would I give them? So this might be one for those who don't want more thoughts in their head. They want to shift this to an emotional perspective that they can relay on to other people. All right. And if, again, that is too cognitive, too cerebral, being self-compassionate from a physical or somatic realm can be helpful. So no thoughts here. No thoughts to challenge, not more to put in your head. This is simply a way to observe what your body needs to, and then giving yourself that in order to practice self-compassion. So again, this is another exercise. So I invite you to get in another comfortable position, ground your feet flat on the floor, close your eyes, and take 3 deep, full inhales through your nose and exhale through your mouth. And I invite you to direct attention back into your body. So imagine a horizontal ray of light scanning your body from head to toe. making notes, body part by body part, of what your body needs. So notice any tension, any sensations, pain, aches. Maybe do I need to use the restroom? Am I hungry? Am I thirsty? Maybe you're even feeling a bit disconnected from your body. Try not to make any judgment, but simply observe what your body needs. And when you've taken the time to notice that, make a note to yourself to commit to providing just one, we're going to start small, just one need for yourself in the next 24 hours to 1 week. So part of being self-compassionate is starting small and letting yourself have small wins. So just commit to one thing you're going to do to take care of that need in your body, your physical being. And when you've identified what that can be, take another deep, full breath in through your nose and exhale. Open your eyes and come back to the room. This could be as simple as using the restroom after this workshop. This could be as simple as I need a hug from a loved one or a peer. Just make it simple, make it short and sweet so you can use that as the compassionate approach to yourself and let yourself enjoy that achievement. All right, and finally, we're going to practice some affirmations. If anyone's heard of them, if anyone practices them, this is another somatic approach to practicing self-compassion. We're going to use a somatic therapeutic intervention called tapping. So there's a lot of research that shows this is also part of EMDR therapy, but tapping in general engages both sides of your brain to help work through and form new positive beliefs. So we're going to do one last practice that's a bit more somatic. So again, feel free to get into a comfortable position, feet flat on the floor. Close your eyes and take 3 deep, full breaths in through your nose and exhale. Just ground yourself in this space. Go ahead and cross your right arm over your chest to your left shoulder and your left arm over your chest to your right shoulder. And we're going to start at a pace like this and begin tapping. So keep that pace going, and you're going to choose one affirmation or basic human right or belief that's compassionate and kind that you want to believe about yourself. And we're going to start by repeating it to ourselves in our head as you continue the tapping. So go ahead and tap left, right, and just repeat that phrase to yourself as you're doing that. And then when you are ready at your own pace and you think that you've had enough affirmations or you're done with the practice, feel free to take a deep, full breath once more. Inhale through your nose, exhale through your mouth. And go ahead and open your eyes and come back to the room. So that's a really brief one. You could do it for as long as you need or as many beliefs or affirmations as you need. But that is a somatic therapeutic intervention called tapping, and it essentially works some of that positive cognition or positive belief about yourself into belief. All right. Final check-in on the practices. Is there anything that you noticed about these practices? Were these easy, difficult to do? Do you have any questions on those interventions, practices? Yes?
How tied is like the self-critical voice to control? Like, because I feel like it almost rewards you a little bit. Because if I'm hard on myself, then I'll do better next time.
Yeah.
Right? So like, and then I do better next time because I was very mean to myself.
Yeah.
So how, like, is that like part of perfectionism that need to control? Is it like, and then how do you let, like, what in those questions and stuff can you help let go of, like, you know, this thing is happening that's wrong.
Yeah.
Somehow this is my fault.
Yeah.
Not my fault.
Yeah.
And so now there's no self-care because you did that.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. That is a great question. The type of therapy that I am trained in and practice the most is called internal family systems, or IFS for short. And through that lens, I see that part that wants control as an adaptive part, a part that has developed at some point in time to protect you, keep you safe, or keep you accomplishing, keep your day going, keep you taking care of your family. And I think the approach to that is just compassion, right? Like, thank you, control part, for keeping me safe. Thank you, control. You have made me do better. However, with that part, sometimes it's helpful to say, thank you for doing that. And I'll need you at some point in time because we all have chores to get done. We all have things to take care of. But I'm going to send you away on vacation for a little bit while I try to be kind to myself, because the fact of the matter is we can't control everything 100% all the time. And sometimes these parts just need to hear that. Okay, control, like, I hear you and I see your need for this. At the same time, maybe we can let go of some of that. So what I would say to that is, for control, greeting it with self-compassion and greeting any part of yourself with compassion. Because I guarantee if we boil it down to the very core, there's a good reason that that part exists. And it has likely served you at some point in time in your life. So I think with those practices and how those practices specifically can help, maybe even using that and turning that into an empowering thing. I can control how I take care of my body to a certain extent, right? I can control the affirmations I choose to practice. I can control trying to see how I would treat a loved one. I can control how I challenge my thoughts. And the Socratic questioning might be a good one for the control piece, because that in itself, like, I can control this outcome. Is that based on facts, or is that a feeling? Is that the part coming up, or is it something that I've been taught to believe, or an adaptive response, or is that based on fact and feeling? Control is a really common one, though. Like, I myself, I'm like, oh man, I can really control that outcome, right? No, Katie, that's just your part trying to help protect you, protect your family and loved ones. So, but that is a common one. Yes.
So I subscribe to the bus driver.
Yes.
Parts of the bus.
Yeah.
So if I'm the bus driver.
Yes.
And there's a part of me that rushes up that I developed in childhood and says, control, like,
yeah,
right, and it says, get out of the way, I need to drive the bus.
Yeah.
I know what's best in this situation.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to tell that part of me,
yeah,
you were developed to do this and to protect me, but like, you need to sit down.
Yeah.
I understand being compassionate for those different parts of me that are sitting on the bus.
Mm-hmm.
Am I ever being compassionate for the bus driver? No, it's a little esoteric. Like,
yeah.
You get like.
I absolutely do. That's a great question. In that IFS parts therapy, the idea is that we have all these different parts of ourselves: the anxious part, the critical part, the control part, but then we also have the self energy. And this also ties to religion and spirituality as well. Some folks believe that the self is the soul. It's our higher essence. It's our connection to God. It is who we are at our best. And our self is compassionate. That is one of the characteristics. If you are being compassionate, that's a good indicator that you are acting in self-energy, in self-leadership. So the self is that ability to have compassion for the part. And we want to make sure too, we're not ostracizing our parts. In fact, we're doing the opposite. We're inviting them on the bus. We're saying that, hey, control, I need to sleep today, so I can't drive the bus for 24 hours. Can you take over? Can you drive for a little bit, but you're going to be able to go back? Another good analogy is the conductor of an orchestra. So, the conductor says, clarinets, we need you. Flute, we need you at this timing. Piano, we need you at this timing. But they're not going to all play 24/7 at the same time. The conductor, the self, the soul, the higher energy, the connection is going to say, oh, we need you at this point, but you can settle back in. So the control can drive the bus, because, there are ways that we actually need control in our lives. We need to say, hey, you got to go to school at 8 a.m. Otherwise, we're going to be tardy. Or I'm going to control how I react so I don't hurt my partner or hurt my kiddos. So control is needed sometimes, but the self-leadership or the compassionate piece is like, and thank you. Thank you for taking care of my life. Even some things like anxiety, the worry of the what if, right? What if this happens? I'm nervous if this happens. That's such a beautiful thing because it prepares us. It keeps us safe. It keeps us thinking about the future. And that's something we need sometimes. Then it can go back on vacation. But that is a great question. Control, any of the maybe more undesirable parts, we need them at some point in time in our lives, or they have kept us safe. Does that make sense to answer your question?
Does the soul,
Self, yeah.
self
Yeah.
need compassion, self-compassion, or are you just sort of having compassion for the parts?
Having compassion for the parts. The self is usually, if you're acting there, we call it the 8 C's. So different characteristics of the self when it's interacting with these parts. It's clear, it's compassionate, it's connected, it's courageous, it's, I'm not gonna lie, I'm forgetting the other, calm. These are characteristics of this self that are dealing with the parts. So yeah, it's the self giving those things to the parts and to other people. So again, that idea that self-compassionate is selfish. Well, actually, as you're giving that to yourself, it's easier to give that to other people. But that is a great question. All of these things, great questions. Anything else? Any thoughts on that? Things you're noticing as we're having these conversations? Okay. So something to note, if you struggled at any point in time during these exercises, or even if you didn't want to do the exercises and you didn't, or if you found it to stay grounded in this present moment as life was happening around you, that's absolutely okay. Some people struggle with self-compassion. It's a journey, not a destination. So it's like learning a new language. Again, you don't learn Spanish overnight. You have to practice it. You have to get a streak at Duolingo. You have to implement it into your daily routine. So don't have less compassion about your struggle with self-compassion. That kind of defeats the purpose. So just be gracious with yourself, graceful, and have some compassion that, if you spent, 18 plus years of your life thinking a certain way or treating yourself a certain way, you can't undo that learning overnight. And finally, the summary of the exercises we did. So the Socratic questioning, talking to a loved one, affirmations and tapping, compassionate touch, or the body scan that we did. That ranges from most cognitive and internal. So if you're the person that likes to examine the evidence, absolutely look at that evidence through Socratic questioning. If that's a little too heady for you, you don't need any more thoughts in your head, try the emotional approach to talking to a loved one. And then again, if all those are a little bit too internal or too hard for you right now, just go forward with the physical and somatic ones to start. And some things to note to take with you. So again, I can't say this enough, self-compassion is not selfish. It is an act that involves yourself, and it does take some time to spend some time and thought and intention with yourself, but that is filling your cup so you can pour into others, so you can take care of your loved ones or community around you. Self-compassion is a balance of understanding, accepting, and being fair with yourself, while also working towards growth and positive change. So self-compassion is not complacency. It is not saying, yeah, I made mistakes and that's okay, I'm going to treat the world like garbage. That is not the case. You can actually say, oh, well, I maybe accept that I can no longer control how that happened in the past, or I can't control what will happen in the future, but I can commit myself today to make some improvement and growth and do differently in the future. Self-compassion is not a one-time practice. It is an accumulation of regular practices that builds to develop improved self-compassion. It takes time, patience, practice, and grace, and that's okay. So again, it's like, I wish there was I'm sure there is an app out there or something like that. Duolingo for self-compassion. Maybe like a habit tracker or something, I don't know. But it is like learning a language. And everyone's self-compassion journey is unique. So I really want the take home to be that you don't have to challenge your thoughts to practice self-compassion. You can, do that somatic stuff. You can do the physical tapping and affirmations. You can treat yourself to ice cream. You can take a bubble bath. You can pray. You can attend church. Self-compassion is not a one-size-fits-all, so it's okay to cater that to fit your needs. And finally, I like to use this analogy of neural pathways being like a bridge. So essentially, if you learn a certain idea or you grow up thinking a certain way about yourself, every time that's reinforced, either directly or indirectly, it's like another brick to build the bridge and make it stable. Another beam. Let's say you grow up learning that it's not okay to have emotions. Every time that's reinforced, another brick. Every time someone tells you don't cry about that, suck it up, it's another beam on the bridge or another rope holding it up. So it's not going to be deconstructed overnight, no matter how good of a wrecking crew you have. So every small little act of self-compassion is taking a brick off the old bridge and building a new one, to know that it is okay to have feelings, or it is okay to take care of myself. So this does have to be a pretty regular practice that comes and is achieved through time and patience and grace. So have self-compassion for the journey of self-compassion. Last final check-in, I believe there might be a way to check in with questions. Is that how that works as well?
Yeah, we'll do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, but just at least for here and now, were there any final check-in questions, comments, feedback, notes for clarification? Okay. So I did say that I would reiterate, so if this sparked something in you, or you want to practice another way of self-compassion, or you want to explore some things that came up, or you're just having a hard time and want to chat with somebody, I myself have limited availability at the moment. I have some, but not a lot. Feel free to email me directly if you have any questions about this presentation. Or Positive Change Counseling Center does have quite a few clinicians with openings right now. Telehealth, in-person, individual, couples therapy, family therapy, some social workers. We have quite, again, the whole range of ages, the whole range of struggles that we are accepting new patients. So please feel free to reach out. Again, we are a strengths-based practice. We don't do exactly spiritual counseling, but we do have counselors that implement spirituality into therapy. So that's also an option if that's something you're seeking. But just generally, we have locations in Rancho Bernardo, La Mesa, Central Bayho area, and Ventura, and online. So those are some resources if needed. And then that's about it for me. So there are, again, some business cards and stickers in the back related to Positive Change. They're little Positive Change logos, but they're shiny and free. So I like shiny free stuff. And there's also some mental health related stickers back there. Thank you all so much. Please feel free to let me know. I'll be here a little bit after if you have any questions or things. Yeah.